Visenya Targaryen was born on Dragonstone 29 years before Aegon's conquest. She was the eldest child of Aegon Targaryen and Rhaena Velaryon. Her younger siblings, Aegon and Rhaenys, were born shortly after her. She also had a bastard half-brother, Orys Baratheon, who was also Aegon's best friend. From a young age, she trained alongside Aegon and Orys with the Master at Arms on Dragonstone and became a fierce warrior. Just as Aegon had the Valyrian steel sword Blackfire, Visenya was given one of her own, a more slender blade, known as Dark Sister. She was described as a harsh, austere beauty. Even those who loved her found Visenya stern, serious, and unforgiving. Some said that she played with poisons and dabbled in dark arts. She was almost the exact opposite of her younger sister Rhaenys in many ways. However, they were both loyal to Aegon and their family. Like her siblings and parents, Visenya had traditional Valyrian features with silver blonde hair and violet eyes. As per Valyrian tradition, when Aegon came of age, she married her younger brother as expected. However, what was not is that Aegon would also marry his younger sister, Rhaenys. Polygamy was common in Old Valyria, but not in Westeros. It's commonly said that Aegon married Visenya out of duty, and that he married Rhaenys for love. Visenya was a dragon rider. Her dragon Vhagar, although not as big as Balerion the Black Dread, was still considered large. Not much is known about Vhagar's early history, but what can be said is she was hatched from a dragon egg on Dragonstone during the Century of Blood following the Doom of Valyria, and that she was named after a Valyrian god. During Aegon's conquest, after the establishment of the Aegonfort, which would later become the site of King's Landing, Visenya first saw action when atop her dragon she burned down the castle of Stokeworth. Returning to the Aegonfort during Aegon's first coronation, she was the one to crown her brother. Following this, she took a series of locations in her brother's name, including the Vale of Arryn and Crackclaw Point. During the Field of Fire, the massacre of the Lannister and Gardner forces, she took an arrow to the shoulder but was ultimately unharmed. After first seeing Casterly Rock, she was said to have been pleased that Lauren Lannister fought them in open battle, as she speculated that the Dragonfire would have trouble damaging the rock. She next saw major action 9 years after Aegon's conquest, during the First Dornish War, where alongside her siblings they attempted to bring Dorne under their control. After the Tyrell forces left the garrison and governed Dorne were overthrown and killed, Visenya, atop Vhagar, burned Sunspear, Lemonwood, Ghost Hill and Tor. Later she was joined by Aegon and they burned Sandstone Vaith and Hellholt. After more Dornish retaliation and the raids in the Dornish marches during 10 AC, once again the king unleashed the power of his dragons against the Dornish. Aegon himself fell upon Skyreach. Visenya and Vhagar brought fire and blood to Starfall, the seat of House Dane, and Rhaenys and Meraxes to Hellholt. Rhaenys and Meraxes were shot down and killed during the attack. The following year became known as the Dragon's Wrath. In their grief, Aegon and Visenya burned every castle in Dorne as vengeance. The Dornish did strike back, with many lords from the Reach assassinated or kidnapped. Not even the remaining royal family of Aegon, Visenya, and Aegon's son by Rhaenys, Aneys, were safe. Aegon was attacked 3 times and would have died if not for his guards. Visenya was also set upon in the night in King's Landing. With her escort killed, the queen cut down her attackers with Dark Sister. During the third attempt on Aegon, the king and Visenya were attacked on the streets of King's Landing in broad daylight. Only Visenya's actions saved Aegon's life. The king argued that his guard were enough, but Visenya strongly disagreed. Before the guards could react, she had cut the king's cheek, pointing out his guards were slow and lazy. This led to the formation of the King's Guard. Visenya modelled their vows on those of the Night's Watch, and selected the first 7 herself, and history shows she chose her 7 well. Both of Aegon's queens, Visenya and Rhaenys, had a lot more power than most queens would. The pair took special interest in arranging marriages between houses and solving century-old political issues and rivalries. The King's Council was yet to be established, so most of the day-to-day running of the kingdom was left to the King's Hand, Orys Baratheon, Visenya and Rhaenys, who would all sit the Iron Throne while the king was away. Visenya gave Aegon his second son in 11 AC when she announced her pregnancy. Prince Maegor was born in 12 AC and was the opposite of his brother Aneys, described as robust by maesters. As Prince Aneys was heir, he was kept close by his father's side, and as the king travelled the realm on royal progresses, Aneys would follow him. Meanwhile, Maegor would remain with Visenya, sitting at his mother's side as she held court in King's Landing. Aegon and Visenya were often apart during these years. When he was not travelling, the king would reside in King's Landing with Aneys, while Visenya and Maegor remained on Dragonstone. Visenya put a sword in her son's hand at the age of 3, and like his mother, the prince took to combat like second nature. On his 13th birthday, his mother gave her son her own Valyrian steel blade Dark Sister. She would attempt to marry her son to the daughter of her nephew, Prince Aneys, the Princess Rhaena, who is said to be a mirror image of her grandmother, Rhaenys. She would survive her younger brother and husband when he died in 37 AC on Dragonstone. This gave Visenya the new title of Dowager Queen, as Prince Aenys' wife, Alyssa, was now the queen. The new King Aenys gifted Maegor their father's Valyrian steel sword, Blackfire, which Visenya took as a sign that Aenys was admitting he was not fit to be king and did not have the strength to rule. She herself took part in actions that undermined the king's authority, such as supporting her son's choice to take a second wife in Alice Harroway. But throughout Aenys' rule, she would attempt to advise the king many times. During the First Faith Uprising, she pushed the weak King Aenys to do as his father would have done, and bring them fire and blood. In 42 AC, during another Faith Uprising, she was with Aenys when he fled to Dragonstone, where he fell suddenly ill. Oddly, Visenya, not his wife or maesters, took personal charge of his care. Aenys, very soon after, died. Mere hours after his death, she mounted her dragon Maegor and had flown east across the Narrow Sea. When she came back, she was with her son, Prince Maegor, upon Balerion the Black-Dread. Maegor only stayed on Dragonstone long enough to claim the crown. His mother placed it on his head as lords and knights knelt as he proclaimed himself king. Together they would fly to King's Landing, where she would tell its people that Maegor had come to be their king, and for any loyal men to join him, that if anyone questions his rule, to face him in open combat. This would lead to Maegor's trial of 7, which she would win, however, taking serious injuries. She would dismiss the maesters looking after her son when he did not wait, and brought in Tyanna of Pentosh, a black-haired sorceress and Maegor's lover. All that is known is when she did, Maegor woke. The king would take Tyanna as his third wife. Visenya flew to Driftmark and managed to make peace with King Aenys' widow, Alyssa, who would attend Maegor's wedding, despite her son, Prince Aegon, being in open rebellion against Maegor. During her son's rule, she still held a lot of power alongside Maegor's 3 queens. She would even lead an assault on Oldtown during another Faith Uprising, in which ended in peaceful surrender. This shows that even later in life, she was still playing the political game and willing to mount her dragon and bring fire and blood. After Maegor's victory in the battle beneath the God's Eye, Visenya persuaded her son to spare the lives of several highborn lords, and after Prince Aegon's death, Visenya had Alyssa and her 2 youngest children, Jaehaerys and Alysanne, as her wards on Dragonstone. However, by 44 AC, despite being healthy enough to ride a dragon to battle the year before, Visenya had grown thin and haggard. Visenya died the same year, while Maegor was on campaign. Upon her death, Alyssa and her 2 children slipped away from the castle in the confusion, taking Visenya's Valyrian steel sword dark sister with them. The Dowager Queen Visenya was cremated as per Targaryen custom. Her bones and ashes were interred beside those of her brother and husband, King Aegon Targaryen. Interestingly, after Visenya's death, it was suggested and speculated that she had caused Aenys' sudden death, with many believe she poisoned the king, put her own son on the throne, causing some to call her a kinslayer and a kingslayer. But other than suspicious circumstances, there is not any real proof for this. I made a full-length video on this theory, which you can find somewhere on the screen right now. Other than the idea that she poisoned Aenys, some even go as far to suggest that Maegor's birth and conception involved blood magic, resulting in his inability to produce an heir as well, which is another video I'm going to work on in the future.